Hi, my name is Dalton Smith, and I'll be demoing my Blackjack kind of clone. It's not exactly Blackjack, it's a bit of a twist card game called Bluffjack. Now, let me go ahead and clean my project, make sure it's blank. This project was definitely a learning experience for me. I learned how to use Gradle, definitely learned how to experiment with Java FX to a very good degree, as well as build management systems, networking, sockets, threading sockets, etc., etc. Now, I'll start off with an overview of how my application works. So, you have my main, and what the main does is it controls sort of it runs the application. So it sets the title to whatever I have my title be, and make it to where it will start maximized. So it won't start the tiny thing; it will start maximized, and then it will set my scene with the width and height of this, and show. I don't believe this is required, but the project has gotten so complex, and it works. So not gonna mess around with it. So I pass my root, my root scene, yeah, to my scene controller, which manages switching between different scenes, and I'll explain a bit more on that. And then I make it to where you can't resize the windows to something that's impossible. So if you try to, you can't make it a tiny, like, weird square. And then this manages properly exiting out things. It exits out our UI and force closes it regardless of threat state. This could be handled a bit better, such as having every event handler could have a stop function. But again, it was a learning process, and if I had to rewrite this application, there are so many things I would do different. So let's go next to the scene controller, which actually manages a ton of stuff. So we go over to scenes, and we go over to our scene controller. Now the scene controller is actually what manages the interfaces in our application. So how it works is you have a set scene method, and you could pass in an ID, and it will clear all the elements from the scene and create a new scene. Now this does have its drawbacks, such as high memory consumption. You're just removing the elements from the main pane. You're not actually deleting the object itself. And to remedy this, you would use a stop on every. You'd have a stop method for every scene, but I didn't do that. So you start the game, and etc. Now let's actually open up the program, the game. So we're gonna build our jar, and you can run it either through your IDE, in this case mine's IntelliJ, but this also works in Eclipse. I have a build management system called Gradle, to where all you have to do to build an application where you can actually distribute it between machines is navigate to this directory, open up a command prompt, do /gradlu build. Oops, that's gradlu build. And located in this build, libs, we actually have this. This can be copied between every single machine. So we can open it up, and we have our game. Oops, I opened it up twice. Actually, that works. It's great for showing off the multiplayer. So we have our Bluffjack. You notice that full screen it says, and resize, we actually have a custom resize. And then when I try to resize it to an unallowed aspect ratio, or an unallowed size, it doesn't let us. We can't make it any smaller than this. So we have a minimum size of this. So we can switch between different scenes. These are technically different scenes I could have made in the same machine and just wiped this grid, this pane, but I didn't. And this is actually a button that shows this pop-up. Extra thanks to the following people. Ignore the credits. It was funny. I like to joke around. So I can start the game, and I can create a game here. Gotta allow access of the game through the firewall. And this is now listening for clients. Now if we navigate back to here, that means the scene that has happened is start the host game. In this case, start host game, and if the client will call this set mainboard as a client. And then if we go over to our scenes, we have the word scene code, all of that. It manages if you're the client and not. You don't want to start wrong threads or threads that aren't necessary. And then you have the game handler, where this actually manages the logic and the different threads for receiving different data. Now, looking back on my code, I could have reduced the amount of thread use I have by a ton by having if else's in a just listen for like turn object, and then manage, and then in the thread restart the thread and repeat. I don't know how efficient that would be, but that's experimentations for another time. So in this case, it would be we're listening for update client. So we're looking for the client to be connected. So start game, connect. We can type in our IP. In this case, it'll be localhost, and our name, Dalton. Connect, and you'll see that Dalton has been connected. And this is our test user. The host is named test user. It's not too difficult to implement. Just a callback to okay, here's the username, because it's already implemented from the host side. You just need to make this option configurable. And notice how it says host turn. Your turn, the host starts first, and we have our cards set up 5-7. The goal of my game is it's a traditional game of blackjack. Whoever makes it to 21 wins. If you bust, you bust, and you have your deck and your opponent cards. But the difference is you only have one of each card in the deck. Therefore, I have a 5, right? The opponent cannot have a 5. That means this card is not a 5. I cannot draw an 11 because there is no 11 in the deck. So we can press the hit button and grab a new card. 5-7, 12, 2, 14, and then in my turn, pass. You'll notice how these this element changed, and if we look over here, down to listen for turn completion server, this we have a listen for turn completion server and a listen for turn completion client, and those respectively listen for their turn completion states via here. The reason why they're separate methods is because I couldn't figure out how to pass a parameter into a thread. What I'd prefer to do would just be like, okay, listen for turn completion, and then parameter server or parameter client. But in doing it from a separate thread, passing objects back and forth via threads is very clunky. So a lot of things I'd like to rework, especially in the thread and socklet implementations. But hey, it works. So we hit, and then over here we have 4, 11, 15. The opponent has a 2 and a 7. You'll notice how these are inverse. That's actually a very useful JavaFX mechanic. JavaFX allows you to apply CSS styles, and that includes rotations. So we rotated them. So 4 and 11, 15. That means the opponent can't have a 4, and the opponent can't have an 11. And they have a 2 and a 7. That's 9. Assuming they have a 10, which is the next best up, they would have a 19 maximum. So that means I should technically only have, if I want the best chance of beating them, I need higher than 19. That means, since I have a 15 here, I need to draw a 5. And looking back here, I can't draw the 5, but this client doesn't know that. So, I draw again. 9. Oops, I done bust. I pass my turn. And then I pass this turn. Now, this game ending logic has not been implemented, but what I would do is just count the numbers of cards. and that's the game. And then I can end the game, and the game doesn't technically freeze. It just always waiting for the opponent, and the opponent disconnected. And that's my game of blackjack. My friend designed not the background. This background is a royalty-free image from Google, but he did design this background, the board as well as the card designs. Now, yeah, this video will be linked in the discussion forum, and I'm happy to take any and all questions. I'll even link my email as well as my GitHub page. When the application is done, I will be the application will be open sourced, so anyone is free to modify it, whatever. I plan on continuing updating as well as refactoring all this. This is kind of like my passion project now, and I'm really excited to see where it goes even further. But I really enjoyed the Java class, and I learned a ton in the process of this of doing this assignment. Thank you. Goodbye.